Hello everyone, I'm Summit Mayor Elizabeth Fagan, and I'm here with Stephen Spur, who is our chair of our planning board, and we're here to talk about round 4 of our affordable housing plan, fair share housing plan. It's very confusing for people who aren't following along, so that's part of the reason we're here today, to kind of give some quick and dirty, points about what fair share and affordable housing means to residents in Summit. And so I'm going to ask a couple of questions of Chair Spur, and hopefully he can help educate the public. Thank you for being here, by the way.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
Wonderful.
So what is affordable housing, and why is Summit legally obligated to create affordable housing?
Sure. So that's a wonderful kind of place to begin. In affordable housing is a broad-based term that means a lot of different things to a number of different stakeholders in this process. And what's critically important to understand is we're talking about the creation of our housing element in fair share plan. So there are very specific definitions that apply. So we'll do our best to be disciplined in the terminology we're using and encourage you, as members of the interested public, to learn a little bit more about when we say affordable housing, what that means. And really, affordable housing at its core means income restricted housing. And in New Jersey, you'll hear terms of low, very low, moderate income housing. And that's critically important to understand in the context of regionally defined median income. So it'll vary around the state. Naturally, in more affluent areas like Summit and portions of Union County, that number may be higher. But it is a very objective measure of income defined by our legislature, affirmed by the courts, and something that really roots our understanding across really all application of affordable housing.
So for those who don't know, what does round 4 even mean?
Sure.
And can you give a little bit of historical background?
Yeah, for sure. No, we're talking about affordable housing in the context of not just a moral or ethical obligation to it, which I think we're all pulled to ensure that we have a diversity of individuals of income in our community, but we're really considering affordable housing in a legal sense. And predating even my birth year, without exposing my birth year, we were going to pull back the curtain all the way to 1975, where the state Supreme Court codified through a judgment that is referred to as the Mount Laurel decision, really an affirmative obligation for our municipalities that are developing and evolving in the state of New Jersey to provide affordable housing. Now, 1975 to 2025 is quite a lengthy period of time in the scheme of things, and you would imagine that the courts, the legislature, the governor, Department of Community Affairs, and a lot of other folks have weighed in and really taken us on a wild ride in that process. So I'm excited today and through the course of planning board meetings, governing body meetings to come, to expand and continue to educate the community Summit on really what the impact is for us here locally.
Can you give some insight into how Summit might meet this round 4
Sure.
plan or obligation?
Yeah, of course. So what we're going to see emerge quickly here, and we'll talk about the actual plan itself and talk about the timeline in greater detail, but when we think about our affordable housing obligation, we should think about it in terms of a certain target that we're aspiring to meet over a 10-year period. You'll hear that referred to very specifically as a realistic development potential, what the community can accommodate, and that's the opinion of planning board, governing body, professionals, including attorneys, planners, and naturally the public weighing in on that process. And from there, we actually look very carefully then, given the target we're aspiring to meet, at the mechanisms that may be available to us to do that. So this includes converting market rate units to affordable, for example, investing in group homes for individuals with special needs, or more commonly when folks think about the development of affordable housing, maybe 100% affordable development or inclusionary, which inclusionary in this case means the mix of market rate and affordable development.
And so if I were a resident, which I am,
Yep.
where might I go? Yeah, thank goodness, I only have to be. Where might I go to learn more about what our plan is going forward for the next 10 years? Because the rounds,
Yes.
round 3 was 10 years, round 4 is 10 years.
Yep,
So where would I find that information?
So thankfully, for those that are highly engaged on the topic, this has been under discussion at the governing body, at the planning board, and certainly in public forums, social media, you name it. We've been out there discussing the evolution, the development of our plan for a good couple of months. But moving forward, and really throughout the entire process, the planning board is meant to be the nexus of this plan's development. The housing element and fair share plan, the actual formal plan that codifies our affordable housing obligation, it's actually a part of our master plan. So we have the ability to continually review it, revise it, but as you suggested, every 10 years, or at least that's been the cadence for the past 40 years or so, we're compelled by the state, by the judiciary, by the legislature, to relook at, reaffirm, codify our plan really moving forward. So we're, in a sense, kind of resetting the expectation for affordable housing development for the next 10 years. So come to the planning board. We're meeting next on the 23rd. We meet monthly. We welcome anyone and everyone to come in person. You can watch, of course, always online, YouTube, and you'll see clips and what have you posted to city social media. So we do our best to welcome the public at each and every one of those meetings. Bring your questions, comments. We really welcome public input along the entire journey.
What do you think the impact of the next 10 years will be, what the plan for the next 10 years will be on Summit, and what's the kind of timeline for the evolution of that?
Considering the 10-year period which we're obligated to develop affordable housing, this is, you can look at it as the establishment of a blueprint for the town. So taking into consideration, our housing stock today, our demographics, infrastructure, sewer, water, the environment, any number of factors that help to inform our ability to develop within the community. I mean, we look very carefully and have for many decades now at the availability of either entirely vacant or significantly underdeveloped land that can be used to accommodate development. And really, I think what's important for the public to take away from this exercise is we're trying to balance, on one hand, the state mandated requirement to develop affordable housing, and God love the Supreme Court, they've spoken on the subject, but balance that with what I think we all hope to aspire to accomplish here in Summit, which is maintaining the greatest degree of local control on the direction of our built environment. So considering densities and heights and setbacks for buildings, the impact on schools, and I think we can uniformly agree that residents here in the community are the best to judge what Summit can accommodate and how we want to see it evolve.
Fair, great. And what's next? How does this process evolve over the next couple of months?
Yep, so just behind us has been a series of planning board meetings where we've invited public comment, we've invited testimony from our planners, from our attorneys, sought to keep the community up to speed on where the process is going, but then also where Summit sits within it. So, for example, in our last planning board meeting, the public heard presentation of two proposed developments here in the community on 190 River Road, and then another property in East Summit referred to as Harmon Holdings. And those were developer proposals that came to us that asked for consideration and inclusion in the plan. So we've really, endeavored as city administration, appointed elected officials, our professionals, to bring together all of those inputs to really the exciting next part in this process, which is Friday, the 13th of June, we'll release for public consumption the formal plan itself. And if you've been following along, carefully, you'll see all the elements coming together: discussion of our realistic development potential, discussion of what the suitable mechanisms for meeting the development potential may be, and hearing anyone and everyone that has an opinion on the subject. So the plan is coming. If anyone's looking for bedtime reading or has a couple extra hours over the weekend,
it's
please.
Only like 400 or 500, 600 pages.
No, it's not that bad. I think it's not even 50 pages. So there you go. And then the next opportunity that we'll hear from the planning board and really ultimately vote for adoption of this plan is on the 23rd of June. There'll be a public feedback session there as well. We'll want to hear how the community is, has reflected upon where the many months behind us have taken us, and importantly, this is one step in a longer journey. How they perceive us moving forward, if it's a big enough bite of the apple, if we would want to focus on specific mechanisms for development or not. So there's still plenty of opportunity for public input ahead of us, not just with respect to adoption of the plan, but ultimately meeting the plan, what's called for in the affordable housing obligation.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
How would residents stay engaged? What would you recommend?
Yeah, so join me, and our mayor is actually a member of the planning board, so join Mayor Fagan and I at the planning board meetings. Again, once monthly, we post that schedule to the city's website. So if you can't even attend those meetings, we've made a real effort in conjunction with our outstanding land use team here in City Hall to post documents, the master plan, our development regulation ordinances, these draft housing element plans for the public to consume on their own times. And then look, come with your questions, come with your comments, be it to the planning board meeting itself or through city staff. And we are ourselves as members of the planning board, members of the governing body, constantly learning about what the community's evolving needs are, how we can best serve those, and would really welcome everyone to give as much time and effort as you can to stay educated, to look for opportunities to provide input, and as Summit typically never does, don't hold back. Be honest. Give us your fair read on the direction we're heading in, and everyone's opinion is fairly taken into account, and the best possible product, in this case the best housing element and fair share plan for Summit, will naturally evolve out of the process.
Is there anything else that you think the public should know about round 3, round 4, fair share housing in general?
Yeah, no, it's great to reflect naturally as part of this process on the prior rounds, again, to keep folks kind of on tabs of where we are in this process. The housing element plan that will be released on the 13th is with respect to the next 10-year period, 2025 to 2035. That's referred to as round 4. We would have just concluded round 3, and before that, naturally, 2 and 1. And you'll see it'll be very useful. It's a nice kind of succinct summary of where we've been through those rounds within actually the housing element and fair share plan itself, because within the Mount Laurel decision, within the legislation that drives this, it's really meant to be a long-term vision for the incorporation of affordable housing. I mean, communities like Summit, and we're not unique in that. We're one of 500 plus municipalities going through this exercise right now. So learn the facts, see where we've been, and then I'll always make a plug here. I've served many years on our zoning board, our planning board, the housing authority before that. If this has really kind of lit a fire for you, come and volunteer on any one of these land use boards, and you'll get to see how the sausage is made, which is pretty exciting for me at least. So.
Never really wanted to know how sausage was made, because I've heard you don't want to see it.
Hard sell for you here, but yeah, here we are nonetheless.
So one last thing, I want to just, you spoke about regions and sort of how that application process works, touched on it. Could you just speak to that just a little bit more?
Yeah, so I think one of the elements of meeting our Summit's affordable housing obligation is to consider that in the context of the region and ultimately the state. The state Supreme Court's decision, the state legislature's decision, and continued commitment by the governor's office to see affordable housing develop means that obligation exists across the state. So when Summit's affordable housing obligation may be confined to our city limits, the definition of what is considered affordable housing is guided by regional median income standards, and accordingly limitations or constraints like residency preference is not unfortunately permitted within these constructs here. And that's again intended on the part of the state legislature, really the state government, to ensure that the benefit of the broad-based community's investment in affordable housing is enjoyed and shared regionally on a statewide basis. So you'll see, just to point to a very specific part of our housing element plan is the Summit Housing Authority here in town, which has nearly 200 units of senior and family housing, has not for a good number of decades counted within our affordable housing obligation because there has been a policy decision made by the Housing Authority to put in place a residency preference. So pros and cons to each, something I can assure you has been debated by most anyone and everyone who has a stake in this process, and I think something that's actually evolving. So we're sensitive to the fact that we live in a wonderful little bubble here in Summit, and maybe sometimes we want to keep it just as it is, but affordable housing is a challenge faced statewide and certainly regionally, and that needs to be kept in the context of why these plans are constructed as they are and why we may or may not have some of the latitude we would hope for to otherwise enjoy.
Thank you.
For sure.
Well, I think that Chairman Spur has given us a lot of really great information today. I really appreciate, again, that you were here and that you're willing to spend your time with me today. And if anybody in the public has any questions, certainly Chairman Spur is a wealth of knowledge. I'm happy to speak with anyone. And also definitely tune into the planning board meetings. They are on YouTube, they are recorded, so they're available for public viewing. Thank you and have a great day.